lots planned, I know. And we'd just like to take this opportunity, Lucy, and then I will then go round the members to say thank you to you as well. But I do thank you sincerely for all your help over the years. It's been a pleasure working with you. You're always very professional, and you always direct the committee to scrutinise in an appropriate way. And I do thank you, I really do. And I wish you the happiest of retirements. I'm sure you will find lots and lots to do, and you'll have a lovely time. So thank you once again. Thank you. Members, would anybody else like to say thank you to Lucy? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to echo your comments, Chairman, and to offer a very personal thanks to Lucy as well, because as a new member of this committee and Vice Chairman of the committee, your help and advice and guidance, particularly at the pre-meets, has been very, very exceptionally useful to me. And all the best for the future.
Lucy, I'd just like to echo what's been said and say thank you for all the help when I joined this committee, and also the help at West Lindsey. Thank you.
Yes, Lucy, you've been a constant to this committee and provided lots of good advice. And yeah, I've known you quite a few years, and yeah, you'll be missed, but enjoy your retirement.
Yes, Chair. Well, Lucy and I go back longer than any of you, I think. Lucy's a bit like the Queen. She's known how many Prime Ministers? Well, Lucy's known a similar number of council leaders, I think. Because I was running youth training, staff training for youth training scheme in 83, 85, and Lucy was of that era. And I think what this is a tribute to is the fact that Lincolnshire grows its own talent and helps its talent to progress to the highest levels. And I think that's a great tribute to Lucy, that she's survived all these changes of administration and leadership, and still Lincolnshire County Council and its governance systems are the envy of the country.
Thank you. As a slightly less long in the tooth knowing of Lucy as an imported troublemaker, I've been around a number of blocks, private sector, public sector, and it didn't take me very long to realise actually we were in good hands. Interesting challenges, always willing to take the critique, going back, but just the quality for somebody who can just step in, look at this, and seen lots of different internal audit services all the way through in lots of different functions. I've had confidence here because Lucy's been there, and that takes quite a lot in my book to do. So thank you, Lucy, for everything. Really appreciate it.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. It's all been said. It's all been said. I'll not repeat that. But a thoroughly likeable and pleasant lady to work with.
Thank you, Chairman. No, I mean, as Peter's just said, everyone has said all the comments. I mean, I've been on the audit committee for a long time now, and you've always been a constant. So enjoy your retirement. Don't come back too soon. It'll be all right. You enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those kind words. I really appreciate it, and it's been a privilege to work with you. And as I say, I will enjoy my retirement. I did start young though, just to put that in the context. So yeah, so thank you very much for those kind words.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Okay. So if we could then move on, everyone, to the formal agenda, and I will pass to Thomas for the apologies, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. We only have apologies from Councillor King, who will be joining us via Teams today.
Thank you. And item 2, we had declaration of members' interests. Any declarations at this stage, members? No? Thank you. Thank you. And item 3, we have the minutes of the Audit Committee held on the 6th of February. So could I have a proposer and second of those subject to your approval? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. It's carried. And we are now moving to the statement of accounts, accounting policies. We have not at the we're through in the process of obviously finalising the accounts for the well, when we come to the end of the year for 31st of March 23. So okay, thank you. So over
Thank
to,
you, Chairman.
to Sue. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This Statement of Accounts Accounting Policies report is the report we bring to you every year just before the end of the financial year. It sets out the timescales and the deadlines for the production of the 22-23 accounts, any significant changes to accounting policies that are covered in the Code of Practice, and we also present to you for approval our proposed accounting policies for 22-23. So starting with the timescales, currently the deadline for publishing the draft accounts this year will be the 31st of May, and this is a return to the deadline that was in place before the pandemic. As you are aware, that was relaxed over the last couple of years. CITFA have consulted on this deadline last month and have asked councils to say whether or not they support that deadline. We haven't seen a response to that consultation yet, but we are working to the 31st of May deadline, and we intend to bring you our unaudited accounts on the 19th of June, together with a training session before the committee to be presented by Ian Fifield, as we usually do. So moving on to changes to the Code of Practice, very little has changed for the 22-23 accounts. There's further confirmation that the leasing standard is to be adopted by councils from the 1st of April 2024, although councils can adopt it earlier. We are adopting it from 1st of April 2024, and we understand that that's in line with what most other councils are going to be doing as well. As this committee is aware, there has been an issue on infrastructure assets that's affected our 21-22 accounts, and the temporary solution that's been proposed by CITFA, which applies first of all to the 21-22 accounts, but then also to the ones that we're about to close. That's not reflected in the Code of Practice itself, but it is in a separate bulletin, and we're required to take account of that bulletin as well as the Code of Practice when preparing our accounts. We have opted not to implement the temporary solution, and our infrastructure assets accounting for 21-22 is currently being audited by Mazars. So the leasing implementation and the infrastructure assets are the two main issues for the code that affect us this year. There are a couple of other changes which don't impact on us, and they're referred to briefly in the report on pages 10 and 11. So we also present to you our proposed accounting policies, and these are shown in appendices A to D. The only changes to the policies for the main accounts this year are going to be some clarifications to our infrastructure assets policy, which we think is beneficial given the bulletin that's come out about infrastructure assets. We've also made a first step towards streamlining our accounts. So the 21-22 accounts document was 252 pages long, and it is difficult to see a way of making it significantly shorter given the requirements of the code. But we're going to make a start with that, and that first step is in terms of streamlining our accounting policies. So we're following some of the guidance that is in a CITFA document called Streamlining the Accounts. So some of our policies are now proposed to be incorporated into the relevant disclosure notes, and we hope that that will help to provide some context and aid understanding of some of those disclosure notes, and these ones are shown in Appendix B. We have some policies that we're proposing not to publish in the 22-23 accounts. They are still our policies, but they're related to transactions and balances which are either not material this year or not relevant for this year at the moment. These are shown in Appendix D. Now, the pension fund accounting policies are a smaller set of policies than those for the main accounts, but these remain the same as they were last year, and they are shown in Appendix C. And then finally, our remaining policies are set out in Appendix A, and these will continue to be reported together towards the end of the statement of accounts. So they're the main points that I wanted to bring out. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Sue. Technical issues, a lot of these, but still very important. And I take your point regarding trying to bridge shorten the volume of the accounts, which is very difficult because they're in a very prescribed format. So there is a limit, I think, to how much we can actually shorten those. Adam, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So you mentioned in your introduction about temporary solutions, and we're not going to take that guidance. I'm just wondering, is that a guidance that for all county councils with regards to their infrastructure area? And I'm just wondering why we're not going to use that temporary solution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the temporary solution has been put in place for all councils with material levels of infrastructure assets. So that will tend to be county councils, but there will be some other authorities affected by that as well. And the temporary solution allows you to remove a disclosure note where the gross book value and accumulated depreciation are reported. And the reason that that solution's been put in place is because a lot of councils have not been de-recognising their infrastructure assets. So what that means is that the gross book value is getting bigger and bigger and bigger as more assets come on stream, but it's never reduced. And it's the same with the accumulated depreciation. But because a lot of those assets will be fully depreciated, the net book value is the same as what it would have been. So that proposal is to allow those councils to remove that disclosure note, and it also allows them not to de-recognise infrastructure assets until a permanent solution to the problem is found. We do de-recognise our infrastructure assets, so for us taking that temporary solution would feel like a backward step, and also when you take that solution you have to explain why you've done it, and that explanation would not be relevant for us because we do de-recognise. So we think Mazars are coming towards the end of that audit now, so we should soon find out the outcomes of that. Okay.
Thank you, Sue. Ian.
Hi, Sue. Completely agree. It's good housekeeping, what we do at the moment, and it would absolutely be a retrograde step, and I completely agree with you. For me personally, this is the right approach as far as I'm concerned. In the Appendix D and the policies that we've not adopted, in terms of we've not put them in this time, have we had any policies where we've had them in and we've taken them out now? Or have we got any that we think might be coming up in the next, kind of not this year's, but the year after, etc.? So it's kind of like that retro look and also the forward look. Could you just give me a bit of context about the ones that we haven't, please?
Yes, I can. Yes, thank you. Yeah, the policies that we've taken out are either because they're always immaterial for us. So there's a policy on inventories and stocks, and we don't carry much in the way of stock. So that would be, and CIPFA do say that if balances are immaterial, you don't have to publish the policies. So we're going to keep them to one side, but potentially might never need to put them back into the accounts. And then you have some policies which may be required in some years. So a couple of examples of ones that at the moment parked and not proposed to be published are events after the reporting date. But obviously if there is an event after the 31st of March that does impact, we'll put that one back in. And the same for contingent assets. We very rarely have contingent assets. So we're going to keep these policies on one side and then every year review them to see if they need to go back in or not. And obviously, yes, put them in, but we're asking you to approve them anyway, so that if we do need to put them back in, you have approved them. Okay.
Thank you, Ian. Any further questions for Sue? Okay, thank you, Sue. I say it's very technical, but I think particularly on the unusable reserves, that's quite a difficult concept for people to get to understand, certainly, but it's a very important one, that those aren't immediately assets that we can be realised or used for sort of day-to-day expenditure and those sort of issues. So I think that's important that people realise that and that we acknowledge that in terms of our notes. So thank you. Okay, very much. Okay, so we have the recommendation that we approve the policies, and they're laid out in front of you 1 to 4 in the recommendations. Do we have a proposer and seconder for those members? Thank you. All in favour? Thank you. Thank you. So that's carried. Thank you very much. So we'll then move on to item 5, which is the external audit progress report. And I believe we're joined on Teams by Mazars, both for the ordinary accounts and the pension fund.
Can I just do a bit of an introduction, Chair? Is that okay? Thank you. So normally we would have an audit strategy report for you at this time with the anticipation of the audit to come in terms of the 22-23 accounts. Sue's just set out that we are still working with Mazars on finalising the 21-2 accounts. The pension fund accounts are substantially complete, but obviously waiting for the LCC account sign-off before they can be completed. So what we actually have for you is Mazars providing an update on the 21-2 accounts, and they've also set out in their report their scope and approach and timeline for the 22-3 accounts. As Sue's mentioned, we're planning to have our draft accounts ready in line with the statutory reporting deadline. Our draft accounts will be ready by the end of May. The statutory reporting deadline for audited accounts for the 22-3 accounts is the end of September. You'll see that Mazars are planning to work through that with a completion date of the end of December at present. So I'll hand over to Mark now to provide an update from Mazars on the 21-2 accounts and the 22-3 approach. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning to you all. I'm experiencing a very slight delay between talking and hearing things back, so do bear with me if I seem slow in responding to any questions. The report you have, which I think was really neatly set out by Michelle there, I'm not going to go through it in huge amounts of detail, but what I will probably do is just talk to you about the current status and the principles. So we actually have 3 open years of audit at the moment. The 2020-21 audit, where we've issued the opinion and we've concluded on that, remains technically open because we are still waiting for final instructions from the National Audit Office on the whole of government accounts process. And until that comes through, we're unable to issue what's called the certificate. The position for yourself is the same as every local authority in England. We're still waiting for that to come through. The 2021-22 financial statement audit is substantially completed and fundamentally remains outstanding for the infrastructure assets, which you've had a brief conversation about already. We actually have, I believe, a closeout meeting. So having completed that work, having taken that work through our quality control procedures, we have a meeting this afternoon in order to work through the implications. And from there, we should be able to enact the final closeout procedures, which I would like to have. I would like to be in a position of being able to issue the opinion on the financial statements in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So before mid-April, which just gives us enough time to close everything through. The 22-23 audit, obviously we cannot issue an audit plan until we've closed out the previous year. But what I wanted to give you some assurance over with this timetable is the fact that we are really focusing on that this will be our last year as your external auditors, and we want to hand over the audit in a clean and complete position at the earliest opportunity, which will enable your new incoming auditors to be able to kick off their planning and bring everything on track through 2024. And that process just means that given where we are with 21-22, is just shoving at the timetable back a little bit further. I'm more than happy to take questions on this piece before John picks up the position with the pension fund. So if I pause at that point and then take any questions on the paper.
Thank you, Mark. I will now pass over to Councillor Stokes. Adam, if you would like to ask Mark a question, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've got huge concerns. 3 open years is just not good enough at this stage. Obviously, you're losing the contract, as you've mentioned. how much assurance can you give this committee that it will be in a position to hand over to the new auditors? Because at the moment, I don't get that assurance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
So taking them in turn, the 2020-21, we've been expecting those instructions for about 6 months now. That just closes the certificate. The consequence of that is the certificate remains open in the subsequent years. The amount of work we think we need to do on that is minuscule. So I don't see that as any kind of barrier moving forwards. Again, the 21-22 audit, as I said, I suspect, given where we're at, I'd like to be signing the opinion off in the next 4 to 6 weeks, early April, which again closes the 21-22 audit off. The timetable we've put in place for 22-23 is based on us prioritising and putting all of the resources in place to deliver that work, so that we can meet that deadline. The reason why we are where we are is the infrastructure assets has caused a considerable delay in coming out via the process. So it wasn't until the end of January that the accounting guidance was out for the authority to compile its position statement. And it's only after that we were able to carry out our work. And again, just to repeat, we've now concluded that. We've got a meeting this afternoon to go through that with officers, which will enable us to sign off the opinion within the next 6 weeks. So subject to any other issues coming out that we don't know of in terms of accounts issues, then we are satisfied that we can deliver on this timetable.
Thank you, Mark, for your response. I'll pass over to Mark Allen and then Ian, please. Thank you.
It's a question, I think, to start with for Michelle. The contract, and it develops the point that Councillor Stokes raised, the contractual arrangements with Mazars, because I've got the equal concerns to the ones Councillor Stokes raised in terms of the position that we're finding ourselves into, which is a combination possibly, well, probably in terms of the changes and possibly to do with the difficulties that the auditing profession is having in terms of resources and all the rest of it as well, which doesn't seem to be getting any nearer being resolved. So it's to do with the contractual arrangements. Mazars are responsible for 2023, as well as the issues in the previous accounts. I take it the new auditor, external auditor, is not going to be picking up any of the issues associated with the accounts that are outstanding. So they're responsible for which year? Is it 23-24? So how, and let's hope the problems that we've got, for the 23-24 accounts don't continue. We will see, no doubt. But Mazars are obviously responsible for resolving all these issues, which do seem to be taking a lot of time, including 2023, which we're not quite into yet in terms of actually the work associated with delivering the accounts. Does the Mazars contract continue so that we have got access to Mazars to the resources, as well as to be able to scrutinise the ongoing work on a proper contractual basis? Is that still going on? In other words, do we have two contracts going, one for previous work with Mazars and one for new work with the new contractor that's been appointed? I think it's important that we've got some degree of I was going to say control, but it's a contractual arrangement, I think, with Mazars to ensure that this work is brought to a conclusion at some stage, because I can see 2023 perhaps being as difficult as the current accounts.
So thank you for that question. I understand your concerns.
I should say I might get make a comment to Mazars, but I'll wait for your response.
Okay. So as far as I understand, and my hope is that Mazars have got a contractual obligation to undertake the completion of the audit of the years that they've spoken about. So the whole government accounts is an issue, as Mark said, that's nationwide. It's about the whole government getting together the information across all of the local authority bodies. I think there are a lot of local authorities that are in a very different position to us, in that they've still got accounts outstanding for various reasons, not just the infrastructure assets. I think we're in a better position because our accounts are only outstanding because of that particular issue for 21-2, and obviously that will roll into 22-3. And as Mark said, we're hoping that we'll come to a resolution about that issue fairly quickly. I think Mazars are obliged to complete that audit. We've already been in contact with KPMG, who will be the incoming auditors for the years beginning 23-4. And so they're already making contact. They're already giving us assurances around their capacity and capability to undertake the work. I'll let Mark comment about, if things go on a bit longer than we expect, but we wouldn't expect them to. They're obviously planning to work to the timeline they've set out. And unless there are new issues that come up that we can't know about at the moment, and then I'm confident they'll complete that work.
Well, if I could ask my supplementary to Mark at Mazars, would you like to make a comment about undertaking the outstanding work, irrespective of how long it's going to take, hopefully within timelines or something like the timelines, irrespective of the fact that we have a new external auditor coming in for 23-24?
Certainly. So, to clarify, you only have one contract, external audit contract, that's with public sector audit appointments. You have a new appointed auditor, but we will complete all of the work through to issuing the certificate, which is the final administrative piece on the 22-23 audit, handing over all of that to a clean slate for KPMG. As I said, the objective will be that 22-23 is fully signed off this calendar year, which allows your new auditor to come in with a clean slate from from 2024.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark and Mark. If I could pass to Ian and then Andrew, please.
Thank you. So I'll start with Michelle because it's easier because I can see you because I can't see mine. So 2021, so we're just waiting for the certificate. Is it technically still open as a period? Sorry, Sue. Yes, Sue. Sorry, Sue.
In terms of our finance system, no, it's not. The period's not open. So we've closed it for 2021, and we've also closed 21-22 period as well, final period. They could be reopened if we needed to, though.
Yeah, I'm probably less concerned about the physical systems, more the case of actually, as we all know, when accounts aren't signed, they're still vulnerable to anything else that might be found, and therefore might have to be washed through. Now, I think there's very, very low risk for 2021, and I think for 2022, obviously we talked about the infrastructure assets, and we know what we've got to do. We've just got to get it over the line, and to take the concerns of Councillor Allen and Councillor Stokes. It's a known issue that's causing the problem and the ripple effect, and that's absolutely fine. Mazars, KPMG, they do these handovers on a regular basis. You flip-flop auditors left, right and centre. They used to have a very good process of doing handovers. The issue for me will be if there is a legacy issue, as you say, that we find out, that you've then got a knock-on, and the resources Mazars have available, should it drag on, that have been around, that do know about it, that are having to be redeployed back onto doing this tail end. So I think it's more of a concern. I'm not worried. I don't think it's specific. It's just an ineffective, inefficient way of doing things. And I do think we're in a much better place than an awful lot of other councils, to deal with this. But it is a national problem. There is also going to be the backwash that when they do start going through, there's going to be a lot of information going in that's going to be scrutinised over a sustained period of time, which isn't available at the moment.
So if I just follow up as well. So as Mark said, we've had an opinion for the 2021 accounts. So in terms of our accounts, we're confident that that's complete. The issue will be, as you say, when the whole of government accounts come together, if there's anything that comes out of that, there might be something that we have to do, but like you say, the risk is very small and it would have to be across the board. The 21-2 accounts, I think we are satisfied that the only issue is really the infrastructure assets and the conclusion of that. Again, once that comes together as whole of government accounts, it might raise something, but I think that's always the case, and the whole government accounts sign-off is always running a long way behind you know, our account sign off anyway, so it's a risk for a little while, but I think it's a very small risk, and it would have to be a serious and material issue for them to raise it, I think.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Ian. Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. We've had the professional assurance from Mazars that they will do the professional thing and see it through to a smooth transfer. Will there be an additional bill for fees, either from Mazars for the delay and or extra work, and or KPMG wanting to revisit their price because of the disturbance to their start?
I can start with that. I think KPMG are already in touch with us, so I don't think anything that's going on with Mazars will prevent them from starting their work. So, and as in terms of fees, that's all set out, as Mark mentioned, the contract is with the National Framework, PSAA, and all the fees are agreed through there. So it would be a matter that they would need to raise if there's any extra work that they feel that they need to charge for. But I don't think the overlap will be an issue in terms of fees.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Michelle. Any further questions for Mark, Storage, or Michelle regarding this particular item? Obviously, there are some concerns about the timing of this when we've got sort of 2 years of accounts running open at the same time, and I do take the point about the 2021 ones because that is really down to central government. And but you know, as an authority, Lincolnshire County Council have had all their papers available for the auditors as and when requested by the appropriate deadlines that have been set out, i.e. May in the year in question. So we will await the outcome of the review on the actual policy, and the handover will hopefully go smoothly. And I have spoken to the auditor at KPMG informally on a Teams meeting a few days ago, and I think they are looking, I'm looking at Michelle here, to actually begin their work sometime in October.
Yeah, so as you say, they've already been in touch with us. John's on the line as well to give you an update on the pensions accounts as well. One thing that we don't know from KPMG at the moment is whether they'll separate the audits in the same way that Mazars have. So that's just one thing that we're waiting for an update from them on. But I've got a voicemail message while I've been on leave last week from Rashfell from KPMG, so they're already starting their work really, and they'll start with the team fairly soon.
Thank you, Michelle. Perhaps we could go to John regarding the pension fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief audit progress report from myself in relation to our audit of the Lincolnshire Pension Fund. As Michelle outlined, our work on the 21-22 audit is complete, apart from the final checks that we will do on the version of the accounts for sign-off after the work has been completed on the county accounts in relation to infrastructure assets. With regard to 22-23, we've commenced our planning work. It's very much the same approach as we took last year. In other words, we're looking at the same sort of risk areas in terms of management override of controls and the valuation of what are known as level 3 investments, that is to say the unquoted investments where we can't readily get a price for the investments held. With regard to our full audit strategy memorandum, we're intending bringing that to the audit committee meeting on the 19th of June, and we've set out a timescale for doing our work in relation to 22-23 within our audit progress report, with a view to completing our work November-December time for handover to KPMG. So that's it in a nutshell. And on that note, I'd like to open up the report for any questions that members may have.
Thank you, John. Looking at members, any questions for Ms Ars regarding the audit progress report for the pension fund? No? No. Thank you, members. Thank you, John. Obviously, as you said, it's the non-listed investments that require more attention from your point of view. So we'll look forward to discussing the external audit report progress with you later on during the year. So thank you very much both, Mark and John. Thank you. So we have the recommendations before us, members, which is basically that the audit considers the 2 external audit progress reports and identifies any further information and actions that may be required. So do I have a proposer and seconder? Thank you. Thank you both. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you. So, members, if we could move on to item 6, which is the internal audit progress report. And I will hand over to Lucy for a summary of this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this report provides the committee with an update of the work completed up to the 1st of February. It shows you the assurance work in terms of audit reports, also any consultancy work that we've undertaken where we still look at governance, risk and control, but it's looking at lessons learned or follow-up, and also any other pieces of assurance work around grants, etc. So the report sets out at a high level the summary of the outcome of those pieces of work. It also provides you with an update of how we've tracked the outstanding recommendations. So good progress has been made in terms of delivery of the plan, but it has also identified within the progress report some of the challenges that we faced with the staffing. So we've provided some update on the staffing changes. Pleased to report that we've obviously recruited a new audit manager and some principals, and I'd also like to take the opportunity to welcome Claire Goodenough, who's my replacement, and introduce her to the committee. Obviously, once I've finished my presentation, be happy to take any questions, and obviously Claire can introduce herself more formally. So the staff changes have had an impact on our performance over the year. As you know, it's been a couple of years where we've had some vacancies and some change. I'm pleased to report that we've grown our own, so we've had some internal promotions and we're making the best use of apprenticeships. But that does inevitably have an impact on our performance and the time taken. So some of the reports have taken longer to issue, and it's a really good time for Claire to reset the service, look at getting back some of the basics, and really shaping the service going forward. So as I say, there's a real opportunity there for some more sort of focus around our performance and quality. We are going out for recruitment once again, because, as I say, we've had some really successful internal recruitments. So I think, as I say, the report sets out the changes. We've had some new pieces of work commissioned, but also deferred some for the new plan in the new year. And the rationale for those changes are also appended to the report. So hopefully the report gives you the information, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lucy. Andrew, please.
Thank you, Chair. Several times, Lucy, you've alerted us to the challenge of recruiting staff, and this reads positively. Looks like you've had a success. You've mentioned growing your own, but have you been able to put your finger on the factors that can secure scarce audit manager resource, because everybody's after them, and why have you been successful? Is it just because they're already here and you've grown your own, or is there some extra ingredient that Lincolnshire County Council is an attractive place to be an audit person?
I think it's difficult to quantify any successes because sometimes it's about timing. Some, you know, a suitable candidate being, you know, looking for the job at the same time you're advertising. We were just talking about that this morning. I think the key focus for us going forward is growing our own. And I think that's sort of seen as an industry standard. And obviously, when we do recruit, we're looking to have the right person. So we'd rather carry a vacancy and not appoint if the suitable candidate isn't out there. So I think we've got quite stringent sort of recruitment policy. But I think the grow our own is the way forward for us.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Lucy. Ian, thank you.
It wouldn't be fair, Lucy, if you got away scot-free without a question from me. No, I think I'd echo with Andrew. Is obviously it's the same narrative we've heard for some time around the resourcing, the flexible managing what we can with what we've got. You'll always ask, what could you do more with if you've got more resource? I think just to give the committee assurance what I'm seeing in terms of the market at the moment in terms of recruitment, we're actually seeing less and less vacancies coming out. There was very much an emphasis on the individual having a lot of the sway and pricing and everything else. The market is cooling. I think people are valuing quality of working environment, quality of balance of working environment. And I do think actually this allows the team is a good balance to attract the right type of people, that people are looking a little bit more past the price. However, that pool of resource that we would be normally tapping into is shrinking, as Councillor Allen has alluded to, externally trying to retract anything. The big firms are losing their resource and it's not going to the usual suspects. Growing our own is absolutely the right medium to long-term strategy. However, we are going to continue to leak. We have to be appreciative of this, and replacing them is going to be challenging. So I'm really comfortable. I know Lucy over the years has put in very different approaches to trying to get quality talent through, looking in non-normal roles to get them to come through. I think the pressure is only going to get worse. Sorry, Claire. But I think the thing for me is this council being really clear as to what the minimum level of assurance that we're looking for from internal audit is, and where we're going to have to start making tough decisions about priorities, because it will keep putting more and more pressure on the team, and we have to be minded that we might have to support Claire as to where we're going to have to focus our priorities going forward, because there's only so much you can do, even if you are growing your own and you are bringing people in. So, as always, a watching brief. I think Lucy's done a great job to squeeze a pint out of, well, a few millimetres of water, but it's only going to get harder, and I don't think the market is going to be as supportive over the next 2 years that we might need, just as a flag.
Thank you, Ian. Mark.
Thank you. The point that Mr. Enderby raises is, I think we touched on it several times in the past as well, particularly in terms of the consultancy work that we do for external audits for other district councils or whatever it is, and in terms of the impact that might have on our core delivery. But you do give us the comfort, I think, that we need, and we certainly do seem to be resourcing quite well, so we're probably in a lot better position than many people and many councils. The two questions I've got relate to a certain extent to the point that's just been made. We're 83%, I think, complete in terms of the audit programme for the year. Are we going to reach 100%? And the second question relates to the missing bit, which is to a great extent, and it's the high priority issue that we have at the moment, which is presumably in the missing 17%, with the comment, and I think this is ICT privilege access management, if I read the report properly, and there is a comment there that the audit is going to be completed by the end of this financial year. Oh, no, sorry, it's not the end of the financial year, it's the end of April 23, so it's a little bit longer. And so will that be fully complete, so that we can understand what the issues are and what to do about it?
Thank you. In terms of the last question around the outstanding recommendations, I think we do track those. So we've got an assurance from the relevant manager that that's the date that they're going to implement, and we'll be sort of following that up in the normal way as part of the end of the annual report. If there's any issues, then again we can feed that back, but we've got the assurance of the date, and they do look at them to again have a realistic date put in if things happen. So again we can get an update from the accountable manager and feedback on that one. In terms of the delivery of the plan, then we will have a cut-off at the end of March, so anything that's not done will not be included. At the time of writing, we're looking to have all those in draft, and that was a plan to be completed by then. But things do happen, so I can't give you absolute assurance that it'll be 100%. But the areas that are underway will be completed, and we have to, as a head of internal audit, draw a line. So there may be some reasons why they've not been delivered. You see some of the challenges that we've had in terms of resources, and that does impact on how long it takes to get things reviewed and out of the door. So the team are working hard to deliver to that 100%, but I can't give you that absolute guarantee.
I apologise for requiring that absolute guarantee and the crystal ball gazing that would go with it. No, the fact that you're saying that we're still on target, I think is more than adequate.
I think there's a realism that things don't always go to plan, and I think that's the reality. It's a flexible plan. I think some of the assurances around delivery, as I say, we're looking to look at how we can make that performance and oversight, making better use of our systems. So as part of my quality assurance review, I've been feeding to Claire some of the areas within our systems process and people that need to be improved. So I think the handover's been really good. It's been very open and honest. So I think the reality is that there are some areas of improvement within our systems and process that's needed to make sure that we can deliver things a bit more contemporary. And obviously the year end is the year end, so we have that line. And we don't carry forward any pieces of work. That informs the head of internal audit opinion as at the 31st of March. So there's usually a couple of weeks of where you're clearing reports, but that will be it. In terms of resources and the focus for the future, I think we deferred the internal audit plan for 23-24 so that Claire has time to take that back, that look around what's the priorities, the focus for the internal audit work going forward. It gives Claire time to have that look at the risk profile of the council, but also to meet the team. And I think I'm going to hand over to Claire just to share some of her experience that she's had so far in terms of meeting the team, and maybe just give you a bit of an insight of what her next steps is for the plan. And I'm just drunk. I hadn't spoken to Claire about that before, so I'm just say over to you, Claire. So sorry about that, Claire.
That's all right. Thank you, Lucy. Nice to meet everybody, for those I haven't had the opportunity to meet online so far. So I've had the luxury of this handover of about 8 weeks with Lucy, which has been really, really helpful. Not thrown in at the deep end without having that opportunity to learn some of the background, and the messages and information that Lucy shared between us has been really honest, and there's been no resistance on Lucy's part, and it's been really nice to be able to have that sharing of information as I've found it. I've spent some time with individuals in the team just getting to understand where they are and what their understanding of our delivery is. And I've also spent some time with assistant directors and heads of service across the council to start to fully understand the services that we offer and their interpretation of the risks that we face. So moving forward, I am already starting to pull the plan together. There will be, as I think has been alluded to, there will have to be a refocus back onto Lincolnshire County Council, because that is our statutory responsibility. And I'm looking at managing the client contracts in relation to the delivery of that statutory work that's not required for the County Council moving forwards. So once I've started to get that plan finalised, I'll be then bringing that to the June committee to have that wider discussion around my understanding of those priorities and as we move forward.
Thank you, Claire, for that view of your introduction. I'm glad to know that the handover from Lucy is going well, and we wish you all the best from the committee in that regard, I'm sure. If I could pass to Ian and then Andrew, please. I think that's a follow-up question.
Hi, Claire. 8 weeks. That's disgraceful. That's luxury. It should be 8 minutes. Get like the rest of us. I just want to confirm. I'm guessing, therefore, that you're signing the annual opinion on that basis, and that you're feeling comfortable as far as you've got everything that you need from Lucy, because I know you will have, because I know what she's like. It will be down to T's and I's and everything else, but you're comfortable that you're putting your name on that one this time around. Lucy's not giving you a fake signature just to carry over.
I think we all know Lucy would never do that. But no, I'm very comfortable with the handover and the passover of the information. There will be a slightly increased percentage of Lucy's professional opinion, because she has that experience over the past 12 months, then I will be able to bring, so there will be that reliance on Lucy's professional opinion there. But other than that, yes, I'll be happy to sign it off.
Claire, thank you.
I have done a detailed handover. And
this is my
given
look
it-
surprised face, Lucy,
yeah.
really?
Yeah, so yes, I have done that. And as I say, we'll be pulling together the final pieces of work. I just wanted to pick up on the capacity and external work. So since for going forward, we're no longer doing Newark and Sherwood, which is a reduction of 285 days, and we're no longer doing housing benefit subsidy, which is about 100 days. So we reduced that external work to give that capacity going forward, but also to help build up the quality assurance and practice assurance arm of the service. So these things will take time to get set up and embedded, but at least Claire's got that sort of structure and reducing. So we're focusing on Lincolnshire and our Lincolnshire colleagues within the districts. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. Those last comments are actually assuring. And obviously, Claire, you're going to take a fresh look at this. The Queen is dead. Long live the Queen. Only slight, and this you might think this is a bit churlish, but page 117, there's several deferred audits, and that always raises a little bit of a question of is there any risk attached to that deferment? Albeit I note on the next page you had some new activity come in because there's been some higher risk and urgency about it. But just give us assurance, Claire, that no doubt you've looked at page 117 and none of those jumps off us. Really? Is that wise?
Thank you for your question. I think there is a rationale behind each of those deferments as they were moved at the time, and my understanding is that they were based upon the risk. So there's nothing on there that I've looked at and thought, blimey, I can't believe we've not done that. Not at all. But that will be considered in the risk profile as we go forwards.
Whether you have two heads forward, you get two comments back, don't you? So for me, there's we'll be looking to leverage assurance elsewhere on some of those. So there's a lot of work being undertaken around the financial management code and resilience. So that will sort of feed into the sort of budget management. And there are some other areas around compliance that we can draw through. So we will be looking at where I can leverage assurance, but also the combined assurance status report is a real vital information for pulling together the head of internal audit opinion. We will caveat where we've not done the independent assurance though within that report, so it's clear.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just looking at this deferred list, the only bit that jumps out to me is payroll, because last time we changed it, it was anarchy, and it went on and on and on. I'll just seek some assurance that when we're going live and paradol testing is actually meaningful, because it lost lots of goodwill last time round. Thank you.
I will hand over to maybe Michelle and Andrew, but from an audit point of view, you've got one of my seconded auditors doing and supporting the parallel testing. So I think everything, from our point of view, everything that can be done by the council is being done, and this is actually lessons learned in terms of parallel running is being quite clear from the outset by Andrew and Michelle. So, but I will hand over to Andrew and Michelle for a comment.
So as Lucy's just said, we've had a member of the audit team who's got an awful lot of inside knowledge around payroll, working with the BW project. Feels like forever, but it feels like forever. So we're getting an awful lot of assurance through there. We're in a very different position to where we was when we went live with Aggresso back in 2015, in that we've done 3 full payroll runs and a number of subsidiary runs as well to iron out some issues. So I think there will always be problems with payroll. There is problems with payroll every month in terms of, you know, people not getting forms done on time and whatever. But in terms of the system build, I think we're very confident that we've done everything we can to provide the assurance that we need for a go live date. But we've got regular meetings right up to, I think the kill date will be the 5th of April. So we're having regular meetings up until that point to make sure we've got all the assurance that we can about a successful go live.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Michelle. I think Ian would like to come back, and then perhaps before we pass over to Andrew.
Yeah, just on that kill date, can I catch up with you guys after this? Because I just want to understand the testing, because I always get jittery, in a happy way and a bad way, where you don't do a parallel test of a tax year end on a payroll system, but I'll speak to you afterwards.
Thank you, Ian. Andrew.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, nothing much to add to Michelle, really. I think is to provide the committee with that assurances. This has been a completely different experience. Obviously, we learned a lot from 2015, as Michelle said, in terms of how to transfer a system. I think the big key this time is the extent that we've gone completely to town on the data cleansing elements of information that's passed from one system to another, which was another big learning point from 2015. And again, you know, as we move into go live, there are no showstoppers at the moment. And that's a good thing to share with the committee as well. The key will be in using the system in an appropriate sort of way, people doing what they're supposed to do, weighing roles, responsibilities, all of that sort of good stuff. And again, we'll provide the assurance to the committee that from a corporate leadership team's perspective and a broader leadership function for the council, we're all clear on those roles and responsibilities and the consequences of not following it. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Andrew. Claire, I think you would like to come.
I just also wanted to add, in sort of last week, we've also agreed that the internal audit team are doing a piece of work around the risks that are associated with Go Live. So we're reviewing the mitigations and the risks that are currently sitting on that Go Live risk register. And our internal auditor is also joining the no-go-go conversation that will happen, just to represent the internal audit aspect of that delivery as well, just to give you that extra piece of reassurance.
So in terms of the go, no-go button, the other one, the old system effectively is switched off from the 6th of April, Claire, and you will go totally live on the new one, Michelle.
So we've got a contract to maintain the existing system for up to 12 months, because obviously we still need it to close the accounts for 22-3. Yeah, so it's not being switched off. It's just about whether we switch the new one on or not. Yeah, so we're not switching anything off on the 5th of April, and that will be our plan B, effectively. If the cutover and things don't go to plan, we've still got the existing system there to, it will just need the payroll updates for the new tax year and whatever. So nothing's being switched off on the 5th of April, it's just whether we switch the new one on.
No, sorry, I was jumping the gun somewhat. Of course, you don't manually enter the payroll, you do it. It does it automatically, of course. We have a reasonable degree of confidence that although there may be a few glitches, that the system is robust enough for the handover. And should anything arise, then we can revert to the old system if we have to. But will there be there will still be parallel posting into April, will there, Michelle, or are you just going on the new system from April after the end of the tax year?
We shouldn't be parallel posting in April. I think we moved to the new new system, as long as we've got the assurance about the new system and the cutover and the data and everything being fine. I say that final decision date will be 5th of April. So that will be posting onto the new system. The only thing that should be posting onto the old system then is any accounting entries that we would, there shouldn't be any payroll data posting into the old system.
Right, okay. So I think looking back, the problems arose before of the new contract, and not appreciating the complexities of the LCC payroll, which of course we are fully aware of. It could be in this particular instance regarding different working practices, particularly in the schools.
Yeah, and I think the other assurance is obviously we were changing contractor at that time as well. So Serco were taking on the contract. Serco are continuous in this process as well. So they continue with the contract 1st of April as well. So.
And looking at both Michelle and Andrew, we're quite happy that the staff have had the appropriate training on the new system. I know it's always fairly scary, for want of a better word, for using a new system on day one, but we were happy about the staff's training and everything else.
There's been a fully involved training program for various different types of users. You know, I think there's, so if you think about the staff cohort, 5,000 people, you know, we've not covered 5,000 people fully yet, because there's things that happen in terms of people's ability to do training and what have you, but you know, a significant proportion of that, and then layered on top of that, managerial training, specific training for the payroll team, different types of responsibilities within the finance side, whether you're a spend manager or a budget manager, and you know, very clear expectations around what's required of managers as well, in terms of, you know, managing things around staffing changes and payroll and any other associated staffing change that you might manage in your day-to-day job. So yeah, very fully involved, and you know, a lot of people have been through it.
And we're also happy, Andrew, on the information that then goes to the pensions as well, because obviously that caused a few issues last time as well.
Yeah, again, it's something that's formed part of the testing and the parallel, you know, programs that we've talked about already. So yeah, you know, all bases are covered as far as we're concerned, and as I said, no showstoppers as it stands at the moment, but that's the current status.
Okay, thank you for assurances, everyone, that obviously there will undoubtedly be a few glitches, because there always are with these systems, but on the systems handover, but to note, obviously, have your assurance that those are at a minimum. So thank you. I'm looking at any members, any further questions? No? Just regarding the substantial assurances, Lucy and Claire, are we happy now that we've got, obviously there was some issue of segregation of duties, I believe, on the economic development grant, so we happy that's all all dealt with now, Lucy? We haven't got any outstanding issues on that?
No, all of the audit reports would have had an action plan and agreed management action and an implementation date. So they were all agreed. So we'll be tracking the implementation of those in the normal way. So we've just highlighted those areas that we suggested improvements, and they've been accepted by management to strengthen the control environment.
Good. Obviously, the low value highways insurance claims are a topical issue among our ward residents on occasion. So yeah, it's good to know we've got substantial assurance on that, with some recommendations for improvements into sort of practices there as well. So thank you. Apologies for not switching the microphone back on. So we'll now move on to item 7, which is the risk management progress report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll introduce myself. I'm Kevin Lane. I'm the Principal Risk Officer, and I'm just going to go through the risk management progress report with you all. Hopefully everyone's had time to read it. Luckily, no new strategic risks were identified in this round of review. No risks were removed So we're still sat at 13 strategic level risks. 5 currently have limited assurance. It was previously 6 in the last report, which was 6 months ago. The change to that is the inflation risk, which has now been given a substantial assurance level, and an improving direction of travel. We currently have the limited assurance on recruitment risk, the market supply, adult care risk, strategic contracts risk, cyber risk, and IT infrastructure. So some of the key changes to this one, these are the Serco contract. The impact of this one was dropped due to the continuation of the IT section of the Serco contract. The market supply adult care risk was given a deteriorating direction of travel. However, it's believed that this will be an improving picture next time. And the recruitment risk in particular was left at limited, but it was viewed that if they hadn't have undertaken the level of work they'd completed, then it would have been a deteriorating picture, so it's still sat at static currently. IT infrastructure risk remains largely the same, but with a view that in the next 6-month review that will be a much improved picture. Does anybody have any questions on the strategic risk register aspect?
Andrew, thank you.
Yes, I am looking at page 127, the limited assurance risks. And you say that the market supply for adult care is expected to improve. I'm heavily involved in the NHS in several areas, and I don't share that confidence, frankly. I know how impossibly difficult it is. Mr. Johnson says he's going to sort it, and then he doesn't sort it. Amazon raised their price to £11 or £12 an hour, and that knocks a hole in the recruitment, etc., etc. And yet we've got an integrated care system set up to try and sort things like this. And unfortunately, in several other areas, I don't see anything integrated, and certainly not joined up care, because people are too consumed with their own domestic problems. So why am I getting excited about it? Because it's very, very important to a lot of people, and I don't see any easy solutions. But we have a statutory infrastructure of integrated care systems that potentially offer a new authority to sort problems like this. So, Chair, I would want to seek assurance through a detailed paper from the Director of Social Services, if that's not too much of an ask for next meeting, because I'm afraid I don't share your confidence that this will sort itself without some pretty focused intervention.
Thank you, Andrew. I think if we can cast our minds back to our meeting, our last meeting, when Glenn Goward, the Director of Adult Social Care, came to speak to us. Glenn did address the market supply issue. I think he indicated there that there were some weaknesses, I think, at the hospital end of the procedures, and he thought saying it was all in terms of post that was somewhat unfair. So it was he would, I think, have said the issues were at the early stages rather than the later ones. But I'd be interested to know what other members of the committee thought on that. I'm sort of casting my mind back to what Glenn reported to us when he last came. Obviously, the market supply is an issue, and some of the smaller providers, the County Council did take steps to assist them in terms of payment of invoices and those sort of measures during the lockdown, because obviously they were under a great deal of pressure. And one suspects with increasing interest rates and fuel costs and everything, despite the fact that they may level off, the increase is still built into the system, so there undoubtedly will be some pressures there.
I've just got a question about the inflation one, because this is possibly my understanding, and I apologise if I'm being thick. when I'm looking about what we've done to reduce the strategic risk of inflation being an impact, that usually is riding against budgets and exceeding expectations. The only way to do that is to take cost out. So the fact is, if you're managing the risk of inflation and bringing that in, you're pushing down in one area and popping it up on others, because it will manifest itself as risk in other areas because your resourcing's lower or whatever the case may be. So could I just have a couple of points on how and what we've done to bring that risk down without pressurising it anywhere else, please? Thank you, Michelle.
So I think I probably gave the assurance to Kevin on this, so it's probably fair I answer the question. So when this was originally put in the risk register, it was at the kind of beginning where we knew inflation was rising quickly, and we knew we hadn't budgeted to cover the costs that we were seeing. So increases in contract costs, the staff pay inflation, we hadn't budgeted to in line with what we thought, you know, how the direction of travel that inflation was going in. So during 22-3, we addressed a lot of that during our budget setting. So, and we didn't necessarily push costs down to meet those. We increased council tax. That was part of the requirement around increasing council tax. So we budgeted and we did quite a lot of detailed analysis across all of our services, and rather than just doing a kind of sweeping, we need this amount of inflation for all of our services, we did quite a lot of detailed analysis around where the inflationary pressures were, and we set the budgets accordingly, and we've just done that as well in February. The council approved budget in February. We've done that again for the current year. We also increased our contingency, so we have an ongoing contingency usually of around 3 million. We increased that to 6.5 for last year and for the year coming up as well, and we also used some of the underspend to add to that during last year as well, during 22-3. So that was able to cover some of the pay inflation that we hadn't budgeted for. So we're not suppressing other costs. We've just it was a substantial risk at the time when inflation was starting to grow. We think we've mitigated that by putting the budgets in the places that we need to. So we're less chance of anything coming as a surprise to us.
I'd probably agree that it's definitely less of a surprise factor now. It's being more managed within that category. I suppose I just get nervous when you have something like that with everything else that's still going on with, yes, we're seeing the fuel coming down, yes, we're seeing some of the pressures that are kind of more stabilising. But obviously, like you say, it's required an uptick in council tax, and there's a lot of other global as well as domestic economic impacts coming on there. It's just when you say it's green, I just get naturally nervous. But I think the direction of travel is better, and I think what you've done is absolutely manage it within parameters, so we haven't got everything exploding. I'm more comfortable with that. I think it's working in the right direction. I just don't want to get overly confident on that one, and I think that's fine. I think your explanations really helped. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Kevin. Any further questions for Kevin? Stephen, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'd like to support Andrew in his concerns, to be honest. I understand what you said we were told about the hospital end. We've also got the provision. But we've heard that so many times. We also know that there isn't a great deal of money going into that structure, and I think we need to know some assurance on why that particular statement was made. I think it was quite bold, the statement, to say that things are going to get better. It's certainly not the impression that one gets, and I would like to have some assurance around that matter.
Thank you, Stephen. Perhaps we can pass over to Lucy and then...
Thank you, Chairman. So within your work plan, there is a deeper dive scheduled for any risk area that you would like to have. But I've looked at your work schedule for June. It's quite full. So I'd sort of scheduled that risk deeper dive in November. But the other thing is obviously the team, Kevin and the team are coordinating the risk owners' intelligence, so we will be able to go back and get a briefing and a bit more detail in terms of the controls. So the team, Kevin would have met the risk owner, Glenn, to go through and to sort of articulate why that message was shared with you today. So he'll have more details, but we can go back to the risk owner and ask for a briefing in the interim. But I've scheduled something within your work plan to enable you to have those more in-depth and the risk owners here to talk through some of those high risk, but I hadn't specified what those risks were. So again, it might be something to discuss with the Chair and Vice Chair. Thank you.
I think perhaps we could address perhaps the market supply cost pressures on adult social care and ask for a briefing from the director just in the interim, but have a sort of face-to-face meeting at November perhaps. We could request that. And also it would be an opportunity to look at the inflationary cost pressures that Ian was raising as well, because I think there'll be more clarity in the system between now and the end of the year. I think it's still a moving feast nationally. I don't think we're, you know, we'd like it to go down to low, you know, 5%, something like that in terms of cost inflation, but there are still huge economic pressures out there, particularly in terms of highways and those sort of issues as well.
Well, in terms of process and procedure, Chair, I'm entirely in your hands. We are a system and controls committee. We're not a primary service committee. And it may be this adult social care issue, which is a big issue, is being well managed by Health and Wellbeing Board or other such committees. And if it were, and that committee is telling us they think there's a more rosy future, then that provides assurance that the challenge has been made, further work has been done, etc. But why I'm sceptical is because, unfortunately, I have knowledge of acute and primary care and community care and social care, and I am not getting a confident message from any of those.
Going back to what's been said, I think perhaps if we could have request a sort of interim briefing paper from Glenn, that would be at all possible.
Okay. I'll request a paper from Glenn next time.
I think looking at the deeper dive in November, that gives the time to look at actually economically what's actually going to unveil itself between now and then, because I think by then there'll be a better indication of where things are standing economically in terms of the UK economy.
Just a final thing for me, obviously you're working and collaborating with the chairman of and vice chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Management Board, so we can follow up and see what scrutiny assurance. This might be something that we can triage through that group and then bring back to the September committee to feed into that. So again, picking up Andrew's point around other views of assurance. So there is an adult scrutiny, and obviously we can speak to, as part of that meeting that you have with the chair and vice chair of Overview Scrutiny Management Board.
Thank you, Lucy. Are we any further questions for Lucy and our team, Kevin, regarding the risk registers? No. Thank you for that. So we'll look forward to having something from Glenn Goward on that particular issue, Kevin. Thank you. So we have the recommendations before us when I access the correct paper, and so could I have the approval of the recommendation item 7, which I think we have made recommendations for any further scrutiny. We'll have a... Sorry, Paul, I didn't... Proposing a second. Do apologise, that's fine, thank you. So I'm proposing a second to today's recommendation. All those in favour? Thank you, thank you. That's carried. So we can move on to item 8, which is the work programme. Over to Lucy, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this report just gives you the highlight of a proposed development, training and development programme. I've just brought that forward from the meeting that in November, just to highlight that these are the things that are proposed going forward. So Claire will be picking those up and working with Democratic Services to move that forward. one of the things will be a demonstration of the new management software called Sharp Cloud. So Mandy and Kevin will be sharing that, so you'll be able to see that new system and how that can help improve the oversight and intelligence around our key risks in a real time. And we're looking at a combination of face-to-face and webinars. So again, that will be something that we'll be working with yourselves. So in terms of the focus for the next committee, if I just take you to that appendix, it's going to be, as Sue mentioned earlier, we're reverting back to the normal timescale and time frame for the final account. So the June committee will be one of the biggest committees that you have in terms of reviewing the draft statements, the annual governance statement, and also having some training, a training provider coming in for that informal training before the meeting. So it is a full meeting and obviously one of your core important meetings of the year. So the rest of the schedule is based on what your core quarterly, and as I say, some deeper dives in on risk in July. So it's just to give you an insight. Some of the dates I got a bit confused with the year ends, and so they do need updating because I've on some of the future meetings. But in general, it's there to give you an idea of what your sort of future plans are going to be. Happy to take any questions or changes.
Any comments, members, on the work plan? Are we happy with that? Bearing in mind what we've said about November. Okay. So do you approve the recommendation to accept the work plan? Thank you. Seconded, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. So now we move on to item 9, which is the consideration exempt information. So in accordance with section 100A, subsection 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, agenda item 10 has been circulated to the press and public, has not been circulated to the press and public on the grounds that it contains exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended. The press and public may be excluded from the meeting for consideration of this item of business. I do have that proposed and seconded. Thank you. Thank you. So we will conclude the public session of the meeting. Thank you.